And starting stream. Alrighty, Mr. Mordue, you're on air. How are you, buddy?
Great. How are you?
Good. Pretty pumped.
I got my voice back. My voice is recovered from last week.
Yeah, my wife was like, why is Steve yelling? And I'm like, man, the noise was so loud in that auditorium that you had to increase the volume to actually.
Yeah, we got the little labs, which are picking it up perfectly, but the person can't hear you without speaking loud enough. And then, your voice just goes. By the end of it, I was like whispering on the last night, just running out of gas.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. We definitely, we planned it a little better this time. We had set appointments ahead of time. Still had a couple of people that couldn't make it here or there, but by and large, much better than the first effort. No technical difficulties.
Much better, right?
Got our nice hardwire and that we need. So I guess we know we'll be doing this in Barcelona. Are we also thinking about doing this at, I wonder if we could do this at Summit?
Well, you know what? Now we're getting the rig down to be super portable, right?
Yeah,
I'm thinking
set up anywhere.
Can do it at Summit.
We just need a hardwire.
I'm sure we can arrange that.
Yeah, and how easy would it be to get Microsoft folks on at Summit right there,
Perfect, right? I'm talking about a room, get Pervin to knock us out a room next door to the one we're in. We get set up in there so it's all kosher and do it live from there. Now, what's interesting is that a bunch of them, though, would have been at Barcelona because it's Barcelona for Community Summit, followed by MVP Summit the next week.
Yeah.
So there'll be a bunch of people there, I'd say, the normal suspects.
Well, we might have some more European folks, European Microsoft folks over in Barcelona. And
valid.
Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah, because not a lot of stuff changes.
Saying, are we going to cover the shit that's all over Twitter regarding departments purchasing Power Platform? Yep, it's on our run sheet for today. So
yeah, we're going to get to that.
We are going to get to that. It's an interesting conundrum. But I think,
Or is it?
What is it? Why don't we get into it actually? Because for me, I don't think it's a problem. As some people are pointing out, Salesforce have been doing this for years. Chuck your credit card in, buy some shit, and away you go. We always go poor IT, but listen, to a degree, IT have created a rod for their own back over the years, have been total munters when they support the organization. So I remember signing a deal with Bupa Healthcare some years ago in New Zealand. I did the entire deal without IT knowing about it because I was selling them back then. It was online, but it was kind of like, not Microsoft Online. It was it SPLA licensing back then? And so I ran up my own servers in a data center, did this whole big build, got it signed off by the parent company, which is in the UK here. Got the whole contract signed, sealed, and then IT, the head of IT found out about it, and the shit hit the fan, right? And he was like, "I want a meeting with this." So he took me into a meeting, and I took the contract with me, had it on my desk, and he was like, "I don't like all these points here in the contract." And I said, "Yeah, but can you turn to the back page?"
It's already signed.
It's signed. Thank you, Mother Mother. We're out.
Yeah.
And of course, it went on to be a massive deployment over time. But why had the whole company skirted around him? Because, the word I'd normally use, but I won't because we're on air here in American sensitivities. But the thing is, he was a knob. And so the company found a way to get around the knob. The guy that was gatekeeping the progress from an IT perspective.
They call that over here, I'm sure maybe over there, they call that shadow IT, right?
Yeah.
Which is where users realize if I go to IT, they're not going to let me have this tool, but I want this tool. So I'm just going to sign up for this tool myself.
Free marketing. Look at that. Just because they gave me this kind of rubbery bomb. That's on my desk.
And it's ironic because IT's effort to lock everything down is probably driving shadow IT at a greater rate than it ever has.
Yeah.
We're working with a hospital that brought us in to build a simple Power App, and of course we were looking to try and get admin access to the tenant. And there were no dice on that. And then we said, well, give us a user and make us a system administrator on the instance, because we can't do anything otherwise, just as a regular user. It's taken 6 weeks of going back and forth with justification, copies of what that rolled, all sorts of crap to get a temporary. I mean, it's just insane.
That is nuts.
Yeah, because you can't even help a customer with just user access. You can't do anything, you know.
So what's your take on this? Microsoft allowing anybody to buy the Power platform, pretty much.
You know, I know that admins have switched to turn that off. So of course, as soon as they discover, you know, it was the same thing with customers or users being able to create instances. If there was already licensing in place, users could create instances without IT, but they were giving IT a switch.
Yeah.
The difference now is customers can actually just drop a credit card and go buy if they don't have the licenses and start using it, and IT will have a switch for that. So it's going to be, if Microsoft put it behind a switch, IT would never turn it on. You know, they just never turn it on. So
they'll never turn it on. You're 100% right. And then only the savvy IT departments are going to go work out how to turn it off. But that only applies if they use a company email address.
Yeah, right.
The minute they go, fuck that, I'm just going to set it up on Outlook.com. Sign up.
Then as IT, you know, I don't have any say. It's not, I don't own it. But the controversy here is that I can set it up on my org ID. You know, I can buy it on my org ID. So there's the controversy. Being able to go out on my Outlook.com and buy it, well, I own that. IT doesn't have any say.
Yeah.
Other than maybe if I'm going to try and suck some data in from them, but that's tenant to tenant. So I'd have to have their permission to get the data, right? But the challenge or the problem IT is having with this is that with my org ID, right, logged into the company, I can go out and buy stuff. And this is Microsoft's motion that, you know what, we have to make it as easy as possible for users to get to this stuff.
Friction-free buying, right? Friction-free buying.
And if we put it behind IT, it just isn't going to happen.
No.
I don't know. IT's going to have to figure out their role. Right now, they're in resist mode.
Yep.
You know, as opposed to embrace mode. But
they're in taxi cab mode, right? When Uber came along.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just fighting.
Don't want to move forward, you know, and it's like, come on, guys, the world's changing. You know, nobody's wanting to be a tin hugger anymore. The whole role of IT needs to evolve and create massive business value, or companies will just run their entire business in the cloud. They'll use some third party to, you know, reset their passwords if they don't know how to do it. But pretty much they won't rely on your traditional, because for too long, IT have been a cost center and they've not added business value. They're not innovating. They're not being creative. So it creates a blocker.
Oh, and you know, I mean, IT's job's going to become making sure every desktop has decent internet speed and a browser. I mean, we were talking the other day about, you know, being able to get the entire operating system, your whole application, everything else, all virtualized, where, you know, we're all going to just be using browsers eventually and have access to anything we need. IT, there's a role for IT, but it isn't the one they've had.
Yeah.
And
there's a role, right? But I think it's much more business centric role with knowing, you know, I think like IT needs to move into more of a CTO type role where they're actually creating business value, not just keeping the lights on and changing the light bulbs.
You know, it's funny, the big story about the Heathrow guy and all the apps that are being built there. You know, the minute IT found out about that, they had a shit attack.
Wrong.
You know, they obviously got over it.
Wrong.
They were into it.
Man, the thing is, like, you've seen Summit's the guy's name. I went up for dinner 2 weeks ago with him. He's got like 40 people now that have come up under him because of his successes. But what's kind of not told much is that over him is a very savvy CTO that is blowing this bigger than NAM in the organization. He got on board, put the administrative layer around it, and then has encouraged the fuck out of it.
You've got that whole center of excellence program that Microsoft's made available for these companies, just to be able to make them, you know, to give them all that governance and some sort of structure, so it's not just going crazy. I'm reading some of our comments here.
Hey, Patty, just while he reads the comments there, mate, I used you as an example in my pub quiz last week in Orlando. I put your logo up on screen and I said, name who this person is in the community. And somebody got the question right. They knew that it was you. It might have been somebody that was on the 90-day mentoring challenge. There's a few people in the room as well, but recognize your brand, mate. So pop that out there for you, which was pretty cool.
Bacon Bites got it.
Yeah. What's he saying?
Yes, Rachel, I agree. It's going to be a little bit of a free for all, I think, and I can see two different people in related departments. I'm going to spin up and create an app, and they're both building basically the same thing to solve the same problem. I mean, there's going to need to be some coordination, but it won't come until after it's been a free for all. Then the layer will come in and rein it all in.
So will it? What happens with Salesforce? Salesforce has been doing this game for years.
Well, Salesforce has not got the same kind of solutions that we do. Salesforce doesn't have a solution where you could say, hey, I'm sitting here in the HR department. I want to create a custom app of my own and my own little instance here to manage some HR onboarding process. Salesforce doesn't have that kind of capability down at that granular.
Yeah.
Think of it more like, the full first party apps. And I don't think they've done anything about users being able to go buy Dynamics 365 enterprise sales.
Yeah.
This is a PowerApps play, and Salesforce at the moment doesn't have an answer for PowerApps.
Well, they do. Like if you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant that came out around low code, no code platforms, and I just happened to be working on a project for Microsoft around this, so I got the latest information there, and Salesforce are listed right alongside Microsoft, as well as another product called Mintex.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's the analysts that are doing those things just really don't understand exactly what they're analyzing. For the longest time, they were comparing Dynamics 365 on premise and didn't even have the cloud in the mix. And it's just, I think they're just a little bit behind. And
yeah,
I don't know. Salesforce seems to be deeper in the pockets of the analysts than Microsoft is.
Yep, I totally believe there's, back in the day when I was working with Sun Microsystems, I was blown away that, Sun Microsystems knew how to woo the market, right? Big events, big nights, out, that type of thing. It was amazing time in IT. And then I couldn't believe all these analysts would turn up and always get VIP treatment, just
absolutely.
like royalty, little, like the movies, like the Oscars type thing. They'd get little treat bags with, there's a brand new laptop in there and shit like that, right? And they would get
human nature, right?
They would go out and treat bag was better than the other guys, so they got a massive write-up. So
yeah, that's the next job I want to get. I want to become an analyst somewhere. That's a great,
how much swag do you reckon Mary Jo Foley comes up with or gets?
Well, she's not an analyst.
Well, she kind of is, in a way.
She does.
What's that website she writes for?
ZDNet.
Yeah, it kind of. I mean, they're definitely not your Gartner or Forrester or something like that.
She'd fall in the category of media. So she's media, and they're pretty close mouthed with her. They don't tell them a lot of stuff. That's why they're pinging, people like me and other folks out there to try and get some.
What did you get a ping this week from things.
Yeah, actually about the same topic that we're talking about. So she just wrote an article on it, and I pretty much said what I said here. Salesforce has been doing it, and it hasn't hurt them. But I do think IT is going to have an attack over it. I think I might have been a little more colorful, and she cleaned it up a little bit for her for her audience. But I don't think she gets as wined and dined as media as the analysts do.
I have seen her wined and dined though in the past. I was in Toronto at a Microsoft conference, and she had a whole big video booth set up, like full on all the who's who of Microsoft getting interviews, kind of like what we're doing now, low tech ourselves. She had that as high tech, like full enclosed sound booth and shit all set up for her.
Nice, big budget.
All branded Microsoft, all done by provided by Microsoft.
Interesting. Interesting. So what do we have? Another question here. What else we got on our run sheet?
Listen, so a couple of things, folks. We're thinking of moving the time from next week onwards. What time were you saying that we're going to move it to your time, Steve?
Well, you were talking about maybe 4 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. So that's
because
4 p.m. your time. So 4 to 5, which would mean what time would be Seattle?
So Seattle would be 1 to 2.
1 to 2 Seattle time.
Yeah, with your move back to New Zealand, we can't have you doing these things in the middle of the night.
So back in New Zealand, I think that's 9 a.m. in the morning. I worked out for me. So no more bears on the session for me. I'm going to get a day's work in. But also what that means is that next week is going to be a midnight run for me or something like that, right, to do it. So that'll be all good, though. It's my last week in the United Kingdom, not this Saturday, but next I get flown.
I heard the city's throwing a parade for your leaving.
Mate, I couldn't believe it. Oh, Sarah Critchley has put on a big function for me on Friday night this week with all the community and whatnot. So she's organized. Nice. That'd be nice in London there. Yeah, a bunch of them have got together. Allison from Maximus IT, she is as well. They're so very, very heartwarming. I'm sure there's going to be a tear shed on my behalf in that evening. Be very nice.
Yeah, Seth, I think it's 1 to 2 at Microsoft. Their time, because they're Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just shifting the whole thing, 3 hours? No, 5 hours later.
Yeah.
Than we are right now. So
yeah,
hopefully that doesn't put anybody else on here in the middle of the night.
We'll pick up a Southern Hemisphere audience. I wonder which audience gets blocked from that later time. Maybe the United Kingdom, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty late there.
Yeah.
For that.
But anyhow, one thing that I'm going to add to the show is future predictions, because I'm pretty much going to be ahead of everybody in the world.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be a day ahead. You can give me the lotto answers.
Yeah. Tell you what. So just thought we'd throw that out there. Listen, has anyone got thoughts on or had a chance to look at our live streams from last week? There's about 20 videos up there, mainly with Microsoft product folks. Any feedback?
You went back and cleaned them all up and
improve on anything like that?
So we also had, while we're waiting for some response to that, we had some questions come in, right, from some folks. Want to knock through those?
Okay, let's have a look at the questions that have come in this well, we've got 2 weeks worth of questions, so a few more. First of all, before we get there, I don't know who's had a chance to look at the Dynamics weekly review. I'm just going to chuck it into chat there.
Is that Guido's deal?
So this is another MVP, Guido, the Dynamics Weekly. This is a subscriber-based setup. And you basically will get he curates the week's worth of things to know. And
according to Guido.
Yeah. And I mean he's onto it. Because why I can say he's onto it, Steve, is because let me read to you the opening of this week's email. It starts with "Welcome to Dynamics Weekly. This week we don't have a podcast section, but MVPs Mark Smith and Steve Mordue did a great job with their guest interviews at the Power Platform Summit in Orlando. Check out NZ365 Guy's YouTube channel if you're interested. Thanks, Guido." So
obviously a smart guy.
A smart guy. that was issue 99, so he's been doing it for 99 weeks now.
Wow.
So a little while. But I suggest you subscribe to it. There's some great content, great breakdown. Shout out about, what's happening on, in the community, particularly around tangible, practical stuff. There was something that I found interesting in there, which was, let me find it here, introducing Monitor to debug apps and improve performance. So PowerApps.microsoft.com, they've come up with a new monitoring tool to validate your PowerApps, it seems, which I was not aware of. But that's the type of tidbits that you'll get. So shout out to Guido. Thanks, mate, for giving us a mention. am very happy to kudos you back. Now, let's have a look at these others. Let me have a look. First of all, this question came in yesterday from Tino. And he said, hi, Mark, the podcast episode with Delete yesterday, which was Tuesday, I think, this week, was amazing and interesting to follow. Thanks a lot for such relevant content in terms of new licensing. I'm a bit puzzled about what's our view about it for new customers after the 1st of the 10th, 2019. Does the old Dynamics 365 portal add-on still exist with its old licensing, e.g. $500 per additional instance, or will such new portals automatically be PowerApps portals with the new capability? Now,
interesting that he didn't mention anything about the sunglasses.
No, it wasn't that. It was, I did a podcast that I
I thought he was talking about the interview.
An hour-long podcast where I really unpacked stuff that wasn't said, if you like, in the podcast that that Nick Dolman did with him about a month ago. So, I mean, I put a tweet out and said, has anyone got comments that they want me to raise? I think I got something like 35 responses on Twitter of questions for him. And at the end, we just started, I got him to read out the tweets and answer them.
Right.
So I wasn't
make the guess work
at slamming him for the shit that was on them. But anyhow, the answer to Tino's question is this. I reached out to Nick Dolman just before this call. Interesting. He was running around with a bag of Skittles and a Coke. Don't know what that was all about.
I don't know what that's about.
But that's Nick Dolman for you. But what he said is that till March 2020, the old licensing construct is still available and it retires March 2020. So I think you got a window of choice, but then after that point, that old model goes away.
I think you could do both if you started with the old, right?
Yeah, I think so.
You could switch if you wanted to, if it made more sense for you to switch to the new model. But if you started with the old one, you've got a little more time to continue with it.
Yeah.
So
now there you go, Tino. Tino's on the session, so hopefully answered that for you. Now the next one is from Danny Cahill, and he's in Queensland, Australia. And he said, hi, mate, during the next live stream with Steve Mordue, it would be great to get both of your thoughts on how would you compare the D365 team member license versus the PowerApps per app license. Seems like the PowerApp per app, if you only use one app, is definitely a favorite since there are no restrictions on the number of custom entities you can have, etc. What would be the attention points or the things you need to be aware about? I need to be aware of them when proposing those two options to my clients. Thanks, Danny. What do you think?
I mean, I think he kind of answered his own question with the one little piece he said about provided they're only using one app.
Yeah.
Team member is horizontal, right? You can use team member across all the stuff. It is subject to those limitations, but if you're using team member licenses for people and they're using a single app, I would agree. The per app license for PowerApps is probably a better deal because of those limitations. But I guess it depends on what you're going to do with it, right? It's a couple bucks more.
Yeah.
And if what you're building is within the limitations, then there's really no advantage paying a couple dollars more.
Yeah.
So too many variables there. One is if it's a single app, yes, but depending on what you're doing with that app, it still might make more sense to go team member.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm seeing Microsoft get very, very smart in what the outcomes they're wanting to drive, right? They want people on that app model. They absolutely do. Team model has probably been the biggest kick in their ass for not having the tooling to constrain it.
It was a clusterfuck. It was a clusterfuck, and they made that clusterfuck themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Just not understanding that, in the world we live in, if there's loopholes, people will game the loopholes, right?
Well, and the natural place for those, because there's a ton of customers out there that were abusing team member, whether knowingly or not.
Yeah.
And as they come up for renewal and have to switch over to that new enforced license, or as they're adding more, they're getting that enforced license, then suddenly they're going to be trying to do stuff and that they've been able to do. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And the natural space for them to go, they're certainly not going to go to a full first party app unless they've been using the full first party app with a team member license, and they got some work to do.
Yeah.
But financially, the logical spot for them to go is, let's see if we can move over to this per app. But then we get into that same thing I'm working on my presentation stuff for, about moving from first party Dynamics app down to a per app Power App, and what's involved in doing that, because the cost savings are pretty huge.
Yeah.
But they're, depending on, again, variables of where you're at, the cost to get from here to there could be pretty expensive. So, but you got to think about, that subscription, right? That's every month, right? That's like waves in the ocean. That just keeps coming every month. The cost to maybe move off of them is a one-time thing. You have to do some math to see how long it might take to recover that cost.
Yeah. So Seth's asking about the team member license. Is it going to be enforced? What I pick up on conversations with Matt Barber last week, the ability to start enforcement is definitely on its way.
Yeah, they created a new license. It used to be Dynamics 365 for team members, and that was the old one. And they created a new license called Dynamics 365 Team Member. They dropped the word for, which is kind of confusing to people. But the old one is for people that were on EAs and contracts to be able to continue to buy more. But anybody new is going to buy this new one. And so the enforcement's going to go on that new one.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how it's going to enforce entity limits and things like that. I think it's going to end up being the app that you're logging into with that. They're going to be doing the same thing with the per app, right? I mean, if you have a per app license, you're going to have to associate that user with that license, and then that user with the app that they're going to use.
Yeah.
So they'll kind of be locked into that little path there. But we talked a little bit about, and I don't know if we talked about it on the show before, but that per app license versus the unlimited Power App license for $40. And I'm kind of struggling to see where that one necessarily comes into play. If I've got a single app user, it's $10.
Yeah.
If I've got a second app that I want that user to also be able to use, well, now they got to buy two of these $10 licenses. They're at $20. If I got a third app, they got to buy, three of them. Once I get to that fourth separate app that a single user is going to use, now I'm at that $40. I might as well go all you can eat. But why would I ever build 4 apps for a single user to use?
Yeah.
I'd be more likely to just put all of the functionality into a single app that I need, and then just parse it out with security roles if I wanted to. This user has security role to use all of the functions. This user, their security role only allows certain functions, and everybody's on a single app. So I don't understand where that, maybe someone else can explain to me the logic of having an unlimited Power App license at that point.
I'll let you read Rachel Roberts' question there, and I'll just, while you're reading that and thinking about the answer, I've got one more here coming from Imran Akram, and he said, a question for the podcast: how do you sell D365 online to on-premise customers who have huge databases, not just because of attachments, etc.? How can we offload data to make storage costs feasible? This is coming from an ISV perspective where the product has been in place for 10 years.
So are they going to have to reread that because I was reading this one, or you'll have to answer it?
Okay. So I'll reread it because
I'm paying attention to you.
I'll give you my view on it. So the question for the podcast: how do you sell D365 online to on-premise customers of huge databases? Now, just to give you an idea, I've gone into organizations that had databases that in the multi-terabyte in CRM on-premise, and we took them to the cloud. And this is not just because of attachments, but how can they offload the data storage? This is coming from an ISP perspective. The product's been in place 10 years. Okay, so what are your thoughts? And then I'll tell you my thoughts.
Well, my first thought is every customer I ever ran into that thought they had to save every single piece of data from the time they started their business is an idiot. I mean, they just don't look that far back into their data ever. They think they do. We're going to do a migration. Oh, we need everything from 10 years back. And, they haven't looked at that. They haven't looked older than a year in the whole time. It's just an unnecessary carry of data and cost. Possibly they can bring over whatever level of data they actually use and keep their old on-premise instance as an archive.
Yeah.
They're certainly going to have to look at how that's going to impact costs with the new with the new storage model and the 3 different places of where it might go. I don't know if that was answered his question, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, when we've done this in the past, we've said, okay, what is really data that you need to run your business today rather than archive data? So what we did, we'd separate into an online data store within Azure, all that data. So in other words, you're not going to lose it. We'd leave we would migrate their on-premise environment to a server in Azure. So if you want it, it's there.
Yep.
The other bit then, though, is reporting off that data, right? You might want long-term reporting. Well, you're going to have a different reporting model then that's still going to look into, let's say, a SQL database of that historic data that's there. And then what we do is go, okay, what's the day-to-day data you need to run your business going forward? And we were able to trim over a terabyte of data. This is an insurance company in this case, data out of that, because so many businesses store shit because they don't want to lose it. And we're saying, yeah, that's cool. You just don't need it into your day-to-day system. Yep. That's why Microsoft came up with this. I don't know if they did, but whoever did, cold storage as a model, right? So it's stuff you're not going to access very often, maybe once in a blue moon. Yeah, it's going to be there. We're not deleting it, but you don't need it in production anymore. You don't need it in your live system necessarily. Not going to be always the case, but you need to look at a data factory or a data lake scenario maybe for some of that data rather than necessarily chucking that all into CDS if that's not the best place for it.
Another factor with some of this really old data between GDPR over there with HIPAA over here, we kind of got a new mindset when we're talking to customers about, if you don't need this data, let's not collect it. Where you used to collect everything you could possibly collect. Now, you can get in trouble for collecting that stuff. It can make work for you collecting that stuff. So a lot of that historic data was built at a time when we were collecting everything about a person, much of which we're not even allowed to either collect or hang on to now. So a lot of that data should probably just, go away. And that, even if they're going to archive it, they're still archiving data that they maybe shouldn't have and don't need.
Yep, I like it. Are you going to answer Rachel Roberts' question?
So Rachel was asking about the seeded PowerApps capabilities in the Office 365 side, which is this whole PowerApps versus PowerApps confusion that Microsoft's created for us. We've got seeded capabilities in Office 365. There's also seeded capabilities in Dynamics 365, but those are kind of completely different things.
Yeah.
The seeded stuff in Office 365 is designed to be used within the Office 365 environment. The seeded stuff in Dynamics is designed to be used within the Dynamics environment. The freestanding PowerApps licenses can be used with either. That's probably the easiest, and this is just from a licensing standpoint, it's probably the easiest way to describe that. And they're locking that stuff down now, right? So the seeded stuff in Office 365, they're starting to make, on-premise, SQL and some other things, premium costs now because they want that really just to be used inside. Doing the same thing in Dynamics now. The Dynamics seeded capabilities for PowerApps are supposed to be used with that Dynamics instance, not go build whatever you want with it anymore, because they need to make a home for this new PowerApps, either per app or unlimited license, or a reason for people to buy that. And that's kind of my summary of that.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
And it kind of leads into, it's interesting because it kind of leads into the other question up there about this convergence of Canvas and model, which you and I have discussed. We know that's coming to a page model, right? Where you're not going to think about whether it's Canvas or model. You're just going to build a Power App, and the Canvas components and the model components will just be parts of the toolbox that you're able to use to build it.
Yep.
I'm having a little trouble picturing how that is going to look.
Mate, for me, they're just components, man. You use them when you need them. They're just objects that we're going to see a lot more as PCF matures. And PCF's still got a way to go. No, I've used the wrong term, haven't I? No, that's right.
Yeah. Power Apps component framework.
Yeah.
I think that, obviously I come from the model-driven side.
Yeah.
So, I always look at everything as no matter what your problem is, we're going to build a model-driven app to solve it. unless it's something really rudimentary. But I like the idea when we think about this no cliffs, and we have customers that we're talking to that say, oh yeah, we're doing stuff on PowerApps. Oh, okay, tell me about it. Well, we got this thing called a Canvas app, and it's running off a SharePoint list, and it's just, we're not that impressed with PowerApps. I'm like, well, no, you really went the wrong way for what your particular use case is, which isn't all, but for a lot of those use cases, they really should have come up the model side where they've got CDS sitting under it, and then because from there you can extend out any direction you want. But I think we're going to see a movement here in the near future. I'm already seeing it, of moving people off these little house of cards they built internally on a SharePoint list. That should have been built on CDS, rebuilding that stuff as a model-driven app, and then having their Canvas app that they're using for whatever point to that instead of a SharePoint list.
Yeah.
Again, not a SharePoint expert either, but I don't know if SharePoint is being as nearly as powerful or as intentional a database system as CDS, and it's not going to get the investment that CDS is going to be the center of Microsoft's universe.
The conversations last week, right, with the various PMs were very clear. That kind of seeding that was done, those days are over. That's the right place as far as they're concerned for an app to be built is CDS as the underlying data store. That's it. And you're going to see all emotions go that way more and more.
All the investment.
All the investment go that way. Classic case in point was, Forms Pro, right? Forms Pro started that Office 365 camp. Sorry, Forms did, Microsoft Forms, but now it's clearly a CDS story, right? I think we're going to see more and more of that type of thing happening.
Yeah, I think we all have a tendency, and I just said, because I come from that model-driven background, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what your nail is, I'm going to use a model-driven hammer on it. It's just where we come from.
Use a quick quote, mate. Use a quick quote. You could use a wrench to bash a nail. That was your quote last week that you gave me. You could use a wrench to bash a nail, but there's a better tool for putting in a nail, right? It's a hammer.
Yeah, and I think, I can remember not that long ago talking to customers that, built a CRM out of SharePoint. And I remember thinking, why? We have a CRM tool already. Why are you building one out of a document management? So, I guess you can contort anything into about anything. It's just whether it's the best tool for the job.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there will be scenarios where model-driven isn't the best solution, but just like if I thought that if all I knew was SharePoint, I'd be trying to solve everything with SharePoint.
Yeah.
So there's some new skills that need to be learned out there from folks, because clearly
the game is changing.
For business applications, Microsoft's betting on this horse.
Yeah. Definitely makes sense. I think it's answered one of the questions there from Ken there about that Charles Lamanna discussion and saw the convergence of Canvas and model. I didn't really get to see what else were they talking about, that convergence between Canvas and model.
They've just positioned, and Charles had said, I can't remember if it was on my pod or in your interview, about how they know they kind of created some confusion in the market about these being two different things, but they're going to become a single thing.
Yeah.
And in unpacking that, it's not that Canvas and model are going to become the same thing. It's that there's going to be a single canvas that you build on, where you can bring those two things in. So PowerApps, maybe they're going to need to change the names again. But PowerApps is going to be a canvas that you can bring in Canvas, or you can bring in model. I guess it's not canvas, they're calling it a page. So like page builders, I don't know if anybody in their CMS system uses page builders, where you can, you just have a page and you drag components onto it, whether it's model driven, whether it's Canvas. It'll be a single design surface, put it that way, where you would work with both. Again, having trouble visualizing. I'm sure we'll be in some pilots here soon to see what some of that stuff looks like and be able to give people some feedback.
Yeah.
Are we looking at a future where all Dynamics 365 applications will use CDS, and basically integrations won't be needed? We will just build apps to view different data, model-driven app, of course. That's, I think, the present. I think that's where we're at right now. I mean, when you launch a new Dynamics 365 instance, it is on CDS by default. I think we're going to see integrations are all going to become connectors. Everybody, there's a lot of connectors out there now. I know a bunch of them are shit, but you can build custom connectors. You can publish them. I think all the integrations are going to be through connectors. I don't think I don't know about some of these integration tools and SSIS and some of that stuff. I'm sure there'll be sophisticated requirements that'll still need those, but a lot of these basic integrations that we used to bring big tools in to do, that's just going to be connectors. And they're not that hard to build. They're really not that hard to build. We've built a few of them so far for some, just as long as we got an API, on the where we're trying to get some data from.
Yeah.
We can push back and forth. It's just not that difficult to build those things. No, I wouldn't call that citizen development, but it's certainly not what it used to be. Wondering about F&O. It uses CDS via dual write today, but not for the whole data model yet. There's more stuff coming on F&O we can't talk about just yet. But
I was ready to jump in and say, "Shut up!"
Keep an eye out on F&O.
Yeah,
you'll be happy. Can't say any more than that without being banned from Microsoft for life.
Yeah, valid.
So did we get through all our questions?
We got through all the questions. We got through our run sheet. I suppose the thing I was interested, I've just written a blog post which is not published yet about last week, and
are you going to read it to us?
Light on the way up. Pardon?
Are you going to read it to us?
No.
We got 20 minutes to fill. You can just read it to us.
No, I don't read that shit.
I will say one thing on F&O that I can talk about, because I did interview Mohammed at UG, and he was talking about, we got this concept of IoT, right? And in lots of cases, IoT means, going in and retrofitting or installing devices or doing things like that. And they came out with, this is part of retail. They came out with this, what do they call it? The something store, connected store.
Okay.
If you listen to the interview, you'll get the name. But essentially, it's trying to utilize existing things, like in the case of a retail store, the existing cameras, right? I mean, all retail stores got cameras already set up all over the place, been in place for years.
Yeah.
And they're consuming that camera data and running it through the recognition stuff they have in Azure to be able to determine things like the foot traffic in the store, what directions they're going in, which end caps are getting more visibility, what parts of the store aren't getting traffic, to be able to really optimize, because especially in retail, you're renting by the square foot, and that stuff's expensive. So if you've ever been involved in retail, they don't want to waste an inch of that floor space. So being able to optimize just using stuff you already have. And I thought that was pretty cool. I think we're going to see more of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Particularly around IoT, is let's grab what you've already got going on in the space, and let's bring that in and consume it and generate some interesting stuff out of it. So I thought that was pretty cool. He went into that a little bit on that interview from the F&O side. Go check that out.
Yeah.
What was your favorite of the? We each ended up doing about 10 interviews over that couple-day period. And aside from losing our voice, which one that you did was your favorite of the interviews?
I suppose, my two favorites would be the Charles Lamanna one and the one with Ryan Jones.
Yeah, both those guys are great interviews. It's funny because they both seem to know where the line is.
Yeah.
But they're also the ones that can move the line in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah.
And I never get the feeling from Charles that he's holding anything back, hiding anything. He's not cagey at all. If anything, it's the opposite. He's trying to tell people, look, we're playing it straight, guys, and we're telling you the truth. This is what it is, and here's why we had to do it. And it's a whole different Microsoft than the old days where you didn't trust anything they said. You know? No. These guys, I mean, maybe I'm falling for it. Maybe they're really good, but I'm falling for everything they say. I'm believing everything they say.
Yeah. No, I think there's no reason not to trust this crew going through. The takeaways from me last week were, I feel like dynamic communities are starting to reinvent themselves. I really feel they upped their game last week like never before. I feel that they're taking on the feedback around their digital environments. I know you had a conversation with Malcolm there that's been brought in specifically to do a whole bunch of upgrades and changes around the infrastructure. We saw there's a blog post out on MS Dynamics World.
Yep.
Right, there's a blog post out there. I don't actually. Can we pull up that? Maybe you can pop that in.
I don't have a browser. Oh, hang on. Yeah, let me see if I can find a browser.
Dynamics World. I'll see if I can find that. MS Dynamics World. That they've gone out and got capital investment, I think, into the business.
Yeah, I tell you, it was a great business model for a very long time that didn't require much change, just little tweaks here and there, and just have your events and invite your users. But clearly, with everything that's gone on in the platform and the world, they recognize that they need to make some changes to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And they're deciding that before they're irrelevant. Most companies don't make the changes until it's too late. And I think they're definitely, on the curve where they can see if we don't make some changes, then there'll be some challenges ahead, and they're proactively doing it. Like I said, they got the investment and the will.
Yeah.
Andy and Janet are very much into it. Jenna was also clearly a big part of driving that stuff forward. So for a while there, I was maybe a little worried about UG, but definitely not anymore. And I mean, the smartest move they made, of course, was having us do our live show there.
No, it's more than just that, right? I felt that they engaged. There were a lot of side sessions with different people discussing everything from, discussing the things that the community are providing feedback to them on, and they're absolutely proactively addressing them. The new brand has landed now, which I think they needed to pull in all these disparate, sub brands like, CRMUG and all these different ones. Yes, they're all very product centric. Now the new brand, of course, is Community Summit, for the events going forward.
Which the overarching.
It's fantastic, right? So it's not that they're not going to have the individual tracks within them, but, there's been confusion, particularly this year. What I noticed in Amsterdam and here is that, I'm a PowerApp person, and then others, but I am Dynamics as well. So there's two conferences. Which one do I subscribe to? Do I get blocked from the sessions on one when I want to go to? And I think this whole idea of put on a single conference, have your streams within it, including Extreme 365, which is very partner centric to a lot of it, the function of it, but doesn't matter what product stream, you can go to any of the sessions. I like that. I think they're simplifying. If I want to do a bit of Power BI sessions, I can go to those sessions. If I want to, do GP and look at, the upgrade path from GP to various other applications, whether it be Business Central or finance, I've got those options now under this new model going forward. So I think there's been a big punt in the right direction to really unify their brand, their story. I think they've been innovative. I'm excited about where they go next year. I think, there's some work that needed to be done. It's in progress. They're ramping up and they're using this investment dollars that's come in, I think, the right way. I'd say watch your space. 280,000 is a current number that we saw as the current members. And,
That's a lot.
That's a lot, right? But I reckon they can hit 1 million in 3 years. I'm convinced if they execute, they could hit 1 million within 3 years.
Their target is users primarily, and that suddenly has become Microsoft's big target with all the PowerApps is users. So there's going to be a ton of users out there using the product, looking for resources. I think the challenge that they've got to have, and the frustration, the same one that Jason over at MS Dynamics World has, is how do I segregate my audiences? Plus, they keep changing the product names. They develop a brand new logo and a brand new name, and then suddenly Microsoft decides to change it around a little bit. We know another one that's coming that's going to upset a few folks who've kind of gone down a path of some naming, some things, and they got to just be continuously trying to figure out how do I, because I can't just put all of it in a pile. I can't put GP, F&O, Power. I can't just dump it all in one big pile. I got to create some lanes for people. Now I got the multi-park paths, right? So they can switch lanes anytime they want, but I at least got to put them in the lane so people know where to go. And Microsoft keeps changing the lanes on them.
Yep, I think it's positive. I've not got to see one of the Power Platform World Tours yet. You know, I was out of the country when it happened here in London. But I know a lot more is going to happen with that. You know, I really enjoyed having that interview with Rose Spitzer as well, you know, and seeing she's passionate about, you know, that entire community. She's tasked with growing it. She's tasked with so many things, really. And the exponential growth that they're seeing under, you know, just that Power Platform header is phenomenal.
Oh, she drew the lucky straw there. Decided they need to create some group for this Power App thing, whatever that is, and they tapped her for it, and it's going to end up being the biggest thing there is. So she got pretty. It's funny, both her and Jenna, the two people from UG, were both very nervous about going on, and I don't know, and then both of them did awesome. I mean, you certainly couldn't tell either one of them were nervous at all. Ken's asking about this. This is not a Microsoft conference, but Microsoft's pretty heavily invested in the success of UG. UG's been a private conference and a private thing for what, a decade or more.
I mean, like when I was looking at counting up, there were about I think there's around 100 odd Microsoft FTEs that came along and present, right? Because they want to present, because they want to educate on their product and stuff. So Microsoft definitely turn up, you know, as 100 folks from one company.
And that's not insignificant. That's a lot of people to fly out from Seattle, put up in hotels. That's an investment, and they build a booth out there. They had
massive booth, right? We're right next to that. They are showcasing everything from HoloLens to you know,
fast track, everything.
All the customer insight stuff, the product insights. Now they had folks there. It's exciting times. It's exciting times, I think, for dynamic communities. I finally worked out, right? I was like, why are you sticking with the name Dynamics? And they were very clear. It's not Dynamics. We are a dynamic community. It has nothing to do.
No S.
Dynamics. It's always been Dynamic Communities International, or Dynamics Community Inc.
But it was clearly a play on the Dynamics brand. So, you know, they kind of made that bet for themselves too.
I think they've made a good pivot. I think they're setting themselves up for phenomenal future growth.
Yeah. And definitely Andy is as enthused as he's ever been, it seems like. And, you know, so I think it's going to be an exciting time for those guys.
Yep. Agreed. Very exciting.
We got 7 minutes to kill. I don't know why this particular show seems to be taking a very long time. Normally I pack.
Are you struggling, man? Are you struggling?
I don't know. Maybe I'm in the middle of a move, so that's not helpful. I'm like half and half somewhere, but for some reason, normally these shows about 30 minutes in, or when it gets to the end, I feel like we've only been in about 30 minutes, but this one seems to be going really slow. Found setting up demo environments to be tedious. Well, who doesn't?
I mean, I heard there's engineering changes that are going to make that more streamlined as well. I think we're still dealing with some admin legacy between the Dynamics world and the Power Plat world. And I think we're going to see that slowly disappear more and more. More and more. Bacon Bites doesn't believe me.
Or he's laughing at Ken's challenges with setting demo environments because Seth could spin them up on a nickel, apparently.
You know what? I'm surprised nobody's created PowerShell that runs within Teams to auto deploy going through the API. There must be a model to do that.
So there is PowerShell to be able to create instances. I don't know if you can run them from inside of Teams or not.
I know that they're investing into the PowerShell capabilities and around administration of that. You know, James Olnick, when he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, who owns the whole admin experience, they're heavily investing once again in providing admin or IT admin the right tools to have the, you know, scripted deployable controls of environments, things like that.
I tell you, this has been an enormous undertaking. for Microsoft, starting a couple of years ago with the separating the apps from the platform, the apps from each other, and all of that legacy that had been out there for a decade. A lot of it just, added on to and iterated on.
Yeah.
So much of that for where we are now had to just be completely rebuilt. I mean, completely rebuilt. CDS is a whole different concept than this thing ever ran on before. Being able to allow for PowerApps, it's been a massive undertaking, and it's taken some time, that's for sure. And there's still some legacy pieces in there, some of which we may not even need anymore. I don't know. We still kind of, as working with customers, have to bounce back and forth. But this definitely wasn't just a rebrand. Let's throw some colors up there. This was all new architecture. Talking to Ryan Jones about some of the stuff that's gone on behind the scenes to really make that move. Massive investment, and it's getting there. It's there now. We can build on. I mean, it's there now. There's no limits right now. It's just we'll get more convenient.
Best takeaway.
What's that?
Yeah, that's what's your best takeaway from Summit? One thing. That's the question there. One thing.
Oh, probably the blind date I did on Monday. That's going to be my best takeaway. That worked out quite well.
She did look like Gabriella Schuster. I'll give you that. She definitely has similarity to Gabriella Schuster.
Enough that we fooled a couple of people into wanting to come up and have photos taken with us. That was funny.
Steve on the prowl. My highlight, I think, of the week was just connecting with so many people in the community. I get blown away the number of people that come up to me, thank me for what I've done and stuff like that. And it's very humbling. So meeting so many people that's definitely got to be the best thing in my mind. What I enjoyed, I think, of the entire event. You definitely, when I was flying home, I was bloody excited, and that's unusual after a week. And it was a long week for us, right? We did 8 days all up.
Yeah, we were there
Friday
for a while.
Friday through the following Saturday. It was full on. What I do realize, I need to get way more fitter because I didn't hold the drinking games. I didn't hold my side of the drinking games up enough.
You did one night.
Yeah, I can do better. I can do every night. I just need to get way fitter and get my not that I can't handle the alcohol. It's like I just want to sleep, and that's not a good fucking thing. So I'm gonna sort that shit out.
I'd say one of my favorite things was a non-thing, and that was that we didn't have any technical challenges. Because for me, for MBAS, and for you, I know that was very distressing, the technical challenges we had there with what we were trying to do, and the space they gave us was awesome, well located, had the hardwire. They were there for anything that we needed to make sure that went off well. Our equipment all worked well. So my favorite thing was that we didn't have any problems with what we were doing. It's because we were doing that, we didn't really get to do any sessions. So but because of our positions, we already kind of know most of what was going to be presented. And normally I'm walking around those conferences trying to figure out ways to fill time or go see a session of somebody we already know, talk about something we already heard. So I definitely like doing this because it gives us a good reason to go to a conference, and
it gives us incredible access, right, to some Microsoft execs and whatnot. Steve, I've come home and I decided I need to replace our lighting equipment for that gig. So here we go. Brand new light just arrived yesterday. Very more powerful from a lumens level than the one we had. But you think it took up half my big suitcase, the other lights. Now I've got 2 of these bad boys. They start at 2,500 Kelvin, go all the way up to a smashing 85,000 Kelvin, which is
85,000.
Yeah, 8,500. My bad.
I was going to say 85,000 set you on fire. I think they just set you on fire.
Oh yeah, so they're a phenomenal setup, and USB-C charge. They'll mount, as you can see, on those little tripods that I bought this time. Mm-hmm. So I reckon our kit's almost down to the size in a backpack, which means we're going to be able to do more interviews in more places and and get those folks on air that and get access to them.
That's amazing, because you remember the first time we did that, you had some big steamer trunk of equipment that we brought out, and this time it got tighter, and the next time, like you said, it'll all fit in a backpack, and the quality's better. So it's just amazing. I don't know if that's technology or just our learning what the hell to do. I think it's probably a combination of the two. So,
hey,
all right, cool.
So
we're done.
He's just saying. Steve needs a picture for his wall. Well, wait, watch this space.
Yes, yeah, watch this space.
On the next episode.
Exactly, by the next episode.
Big time, right?
Yeah, I look like I'm in prison right now, but it'll change. All right, guys, it's been fun. Mark, as always.
Let's